Welcome back to We on Wild is One and thank you for staying with us. I'm Eric Njoka. The headlines at this hour. US President Trump lashes out at his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin over peace talks in Ukraine, threatens of placing fresh sanctions on Moscow. Lebanon says 3 people killed in a strike near Tripoli, but the Israeli military claims targeted a Hamas militant. This is the first strike on the northeast since a November ceasefire with Hezbollah. Negotiations for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are continuing but need time, host Qatar cautions after US President Trump voiced optimism about a possible breakthrough. A fast-moving wildfire advances into Marseille, France's second largest city. Blaze forces airport shutdown as thick clouds of smoke hover over the city. Japan and South Korea push for US tariff concessions, try to negotiate with the US to soften the impact of tariffs that President Trump plans to impose from August 1st. Prime Minister Narendra Modi gets a ceremonial welcome during his state visit by Brazilian President Lula da Silva at the Alvorada Palace in Brasilia. The duo will strengthen bilateral ties by signing agreements. Imran Khan's sister says the PTI chief's sons will go to the US first to raise the issue with Trump's administration and will lead the PTI movement in Pakistan. The remark comes after Alima met the leader in jail today. Afghanistan's Taliban authorities reject the International Criminal Court's arrest warrants for 2 senior leaders of accusations of persecuting women. Call the move nonsense, say they don't recognize the court. The death toll from catastrophic flooding in Texas rises to more than 100 as rescuers continue their grim search for people swept away by torrents of water. And Spanish police reveal likely cause of Liverpool and Portugal forward Diogo Jota's fatal crash. They say Jota and his brother were likely speeding when their car veered off a Spanish motorway last week.
It had all the markings of a classic spring or summer storm in Sydney without the heat. More than 100,000 lightning strikes hitting suburbs across our city and the state as hailstones rain down overnight.
Night falls on Sydney and live wires light up the sky, giving our landmarks an extra bit of magic. The tallest towers sitting ducks, a spring storm months early.
When we're talking thunderstorms and hail, that does make us think of a springtime weather pattern. So not the most common to see what we saw yesterday at this time of year.
From the harbour to Liverpool, Castle Hill and across our northern beaches, no part of the city without tickets to the show, the freshwater ferry with the best seats in the house. Sydney spared the most damaging part of the storm.
Oh my God, it is all over the road.
Hail falling to our central west in Mudgee and Bathurst. And to the north on the central coast, it came smashing down.
That was probably the biggest that I saw, at least on the photos that came through. Around about 3 centimetre wide hail.
The State Emergency Service responding to 28 jobs, almost half in Wyong, mostly for damaged roofs. Helene Lambetsos, 9.
At least 104 people are now confirmed dead from catastrophic flash flooding in the U.S. state of Texas, as the chance of finding survivors fades. The death toll includes 27 children and counselors from a summer camp. 11 more are still missing. The flooding has caused upwards of $22 billion in damage and economic losses. Residents are asking why early weather warnings were not issued for the floods, some blaming federal cuts to the National Weather Service. Millions of people are now at risk of further flooding, with more heavy rain expected throughout the area.
We know this morning the death toll continues to rise in Texas following catastrophic flooding over the holiday weekend.
At least 104 people are dead as of Monday following those floods in central Texas.
Search and rescue teams have recovered bodies, 84 bodies, in fact, including 28 children in Kerr County alone. Authorities are expecting that death toll to rise with additional rainfall on the way and more threats of flooding in already saturated places.
At least 19 deaths were reported in 5 other counties. And as we said, dozens are still missing as widespread search and rescue efforts continue this morning.
Lee Waldman has been live, in the hardest hit areas like Kerrville for several days now. She joins us with some insight as to when this could shift to a recovery mission.
After days of battling tough search conditions, determination to find every last missing person in the Texas floodwater persists.
It's our job never to assume or never presume that somebody's deceased. We're out here trying to find everybody alive.
In hard-hit Hunt, Texas, Christian Fell and his family are clearing feet of mud from their home, the home that nearly trapped him in rapidly rising water Friday morning.
When I opened the door, all this water started flooding back in, and I couldn't walk outside because it was like so powerful. I couldn't close the door.
Fell went into his bedroom, trying to get on furniture that was already floating above his head to no avail.
I tried to open up this door, but the door wouldn't open. And then that's when I saw that this window right here was broken, and I swam through it.
In the darkness, surrounded by water, he climbed up to this electrical meter. Fell stayed there waiting for help for 3 hours. He says there was no warning ahead of time.
Didn't have any alerts until the water was already like inside the house.
Across the Guadalupe River from Fell's home is Camp La Junta. Kelly Rabone's son, Braden and Brock, were saved from the rising water by their camp counselors.
Once the water came into his cabin, they moved the boys from their lower bunks to then the upper bunk, and then ultimately hoisted them up into the rafters.
In Kerrville, Texas, I'm Lee Waldman.
A Texas state representative was out helping with recovery efforts following the deadly flooding in central Texas as well.
I can't even begin to put myself in the shoes of the families that have been impacted by this devastation. But what I do know as a mom is that there are moms missing their babies, and we're here fighting for them.
Representative Garcia rolled up her sleeves in Ingram Monday, which is in eastern Kerr County along the Guadalupe River.
Now, over the weekend, remnants from formerly Tropical Storm Barry dropped heavy rains, causing the river to rise 26 feet in just 45 minutes. It's like unfathomable.
I cannot imagine.
I know.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz spoke with reporters Monday night about how the state plans to prevent incidents like this from ever happening again.
There will naturally be a period of retrospection where you look back and say, okay, what exactly transpired? What was the timeline? And what could have been done differently to prevent this loss of life?
A Kerr County sheriff believes that the flooding alert system will be approved in the near future. The Central Texas flooding is one of the deadliest in the past 100 years in the U.S.
Heavy rainfall in Tibet region triggered a deluge, washing away a bridge. The Friendship Bridge connected Nepal and China. One person has died and about 31 others are reported missing. Hundreds of vehicles parked at a nearby dry port were also swept away. The flood, triggered by heavy rainfall on the Chinese side, hit the Timure area early this morning, causing extensive damage to infrastructure. Officials reported that around 200 vehicles stored at the customs port were swept away by the rising waters. According to Nepal police, 8 bodies have been recovered so far. Overall, 14 Nepalese and 6 Chinese are listed as missing, among those believed to have been inside vehicles at the time of the deluge. While police stated that 57 people have been rescued so far, 12 Nepal police personnel are also reported trapped in the flooded area. while on Chinese side, a state television CCTV reported that a mudslide disaster hit the border area in which 11 people were reported missing on the Chinese side. It said those were in addition to 6 Chinese construction workers swept away on the Nepal side. Rescue efforts are currently underway, with the Nepal Army coordinating search operations despite high water levels and poor weather conditions. They have also deployed a helicopter to rescue stranded workers at the Rasu Wagadi hydropower project on the Trishuli River, which is much closer to the Chinese border. Many traders have been stranded after the critical bridge connecting Nepal and China was destroyed. Local authorities are advising residents along the Trishuli River to remain vigilant and exercise caution as the situation develops. Now, deadly floods and landslides are common across South Asia during the monsoon season from June to September, but experts say climate change is making them even worse. Earlier in June, also, Kathmandu-based International Center for Integrated Mountain Development warned about heightened disaster risks which Nepal might face this monsoon season.
Central Taiwan is seeing heavy downpours even after Typhoon Danas has moved away from the country. In Zhanghua, floodwaters rose to knee level at the historic Lugang Tianhou Temple, submerging incense burners and offering tables.
Climate change is stirring glaciers from Earth's peaks. Thousands of feet of ice vanishing. Scientists now warn that these melting giants may awaken hundreds of dormant volcanoes, unleashing explosions far more powerful than any that we have witnessed. Our next report exploring the dangers that could lie ahead.
The Earth itself is groaning under the weight of a terrifying new threat. Scientists are sounding a grave alarm. Hundreds of dormant volcanoes, long slumbering beneath the planet's icy crust, could soon awaken with an unprecedented explosive force. This chilling prediction, directly linked to our warming planet and its rapidly melting glaciers, signals a potential era of catastrophic eruptions, dwarfing anything in recent memory and unleashing unimaginable devastation globally. For millennia, the colossal weight of glaciers has acted as a colossal lid, suppressing the immense pressures building within the Earth's fiery heart. Now, as our planet warms and ice sheets across the globe retreat at an alarming pace, that colossal lid is lifting. A new study presented at the 2025 Goldschmidt Conference in Prague reveals that melting ice is directly linked to an increase in both the frequency and explosive power of volcanic eruptions. This isn't theoretical. Historical data from the last ice age shows a surge in volcanic activity, as glaciers retreated, with Iceland experiencing eruption rates 30 to 50 times greater than before or since. The mechanism is terrifyingly simple. The immense weight of glaciers pushes down on the Earth's crust and mantle. As the ice melts, the pressure is released, allowing subterranean gases and magma to expand rapidly, fueling explosive eruptions. This planetary threat is immense. An estimated 245 potentially active volcanoes lie directly beneath or within 5 kilometers of ice, particularly in regions like North America, Russia, Antarctica, and New Zealand. Scientists warn that thick glacial coverage over magma chambers is the key requirement for increased explosivity, and the trigger point, glacier retreat, is happening now. This looming threat has two fatal punchlines. First, explosive eruptions would trigger deadly ash clouds and glacier outburst floods, unleashing worldwide havoc. Second, they would spew enormous volumes of CO2 and methane, accelerating warming in a brutal feedback loop.
Egyptian officials reported on Tuesday that a fire engulfing a major telecom company building in downtown Cairo the previous day resulted in 4 fatalities and over 24 injuries. The significant blaze, which erupted at the iconic 10-story Telecom Egypt building and persisted for several hours, originated in one of the halls on the floor designated for telecom operators and spread to other levels due to its severity, according to authorities. The 4 deceased were employees of the company who were present in the burning structure, as stated by their workers' union. As of Tuesday afternoon, the Health Ministry provided an update indicating that 27 individuals had been hospitalized, although some have since been released. The ministry confirmed that 4 bodies were retrieved from the scene. The Monday fire caused a temporary disruption of internet and mobile phone services, as well as air traffic.
Boa tarde, pessoal. Boa tarde, né? Vai dar 2 da tarde.
Presidente da República de país do tamanho dos Estados Unidos ficar ameaçando o mundo através da internet. Não é correto. Sabe? Ele precisa saber que o mundo mudou. Sabe? Não queremos imperador. Nós somos países soberanos. Se ele achar que ele pode taxar, os países têm o direito de taxar também.
Ontem à noite, numa rede social, o presidente Trump falou...
Enough is enough. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has criticized a new wave of tariffs US President Trump has threatened to impose on a number of countries. As the only sub-Saharan country on the list, South Africa could be hit with 30% tariffs on its exports to the US from 1st of August. The presidential office noted that the 30% tariffs are not an accurate representation of available trade data. Ramaphosa pointed out that in turn, South Africa imposes far lower or no tariffs on US imports. According to the press release, South Africa's negotiation teams will continue to engage with Washington to improve the trade relationship. Overall ties between Washington and Pretoria have experienced severe strains since Trump returned to office, with a meeting between Ramaphosa and his American counterpart in May doing little to improve the situation.
U.S. children have a higher mortality rate than children living in comparable high-income countries, according to a new study published Monday in the journal JAMA Network. The health of U.S. children has worsened across a wide range of health indicator domains over the last 17 years, the study's conclusion states. The study's authors looked at health data gathered from 2007 to 2023. The data showed a rise in chronic health conditions among children, increasing rates of obesity, and a deterioration in children's mental health. The study's authors conclude that this represents a public health crisis requiring immediate national action. Infants in the U.S. were 78% more likely to die compared to infants in the other 18 wealthy countries. And children and teens 1 to 19 years old were 80% more likely to die than their counterparts in those countries as well. For infants under the age of 1, premature birth and sudden unexpected infant death are the top 2 reasons why U.S. babies are dying at much higher rates than those in other wealthy nations. Kids and teens in the United States are 15 times more likely to die from firearm-related incidents and 2.5 times more likely to die in motor vehicle crashes, according to the study. The study doesn't conclude what's causing the higher mortality rates. However, the study's researchers believe the rise in health issues among children may be connected to larger, complex factors in our environment, diets, and society, including pollution, changes in food quality, family stress, social media, and economic pressures. The researchers caution that these links are not yet fully understood and more research is needed.
10 people are facing federal charges of attempted murder this morning. This comes after prosecutors say an Alvarado police officer and correctional officers were attacked Friday night at an ICE detention facility. Trevor Sohaki is there live this morning in Alvarado this morning with the very latest on this. And Trevor, authorities are calling this an ambush. What else have you learning?
Yeah, that's right, Carmen. It's still very tense out here. We've seen multiple ICE agents roaming around. They've checked our credentials, and they don't want us to show you this on camera, but just over to my right, there's an armored truck over there, as well as multiple vehicles that are kind of protecting the entrance to this ICE detention facility behind me, making sure that everyone who is here is supposed to be here, and no one can get in unless they are allowed to be here. And that's because officials say this was a planned attack on ICE agents intended to kill ICE agents. They say this was no peaceful protest. There were shots fired. Now, the acting North Texas U.S. Attorney Nancy Larson, she says there are about a dozen or so people who came to this Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado on Friday night. She says they were dressed in black military-style clothes and used fireworks and vandalized property to lure agents into a trap. Authorities allege a suspect in a wooded area near the center then shot an Alvarado police officer in the neck, and a second suspect fired 20 to 30 bullets at officers who had stepped outside. Investigators found AR-style rifles at the scene, and the defendants were found with body armor.
Violence, threats of violence, and attempts of vandalism at our ICE facilities will not deter our officers from fulfilling their duties. Within ICE alone, our officers and agents are facing a 700% increase in assaults.
And the 10 suspects here face a minimum of 10 years in prison if convicted, maximum life sentence. They all are facing additional lesser charges, as does an alleged accomplice. Live in Alvarado, Trevor Sohaki, CBS News, Texas.